We have landfall this morning of Hurricane Florence, and the satellite and radar show it pretty well here. The eye was over Wrightsville Beach at 7:45 a.m. Good morning, everyone. Joe Chaffee here, 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday, September the 14th. And we've been dealing with this storm for quite a while now. We've been at it for the last 10 days, and we have seen it make landfall, and it has been moving very, very slowly. Even though the top winds, the maximum sustained winds, have dropped to 90 miles an hour, we still have a very large area of gales, and we also have seen some very heavy rainfalls during the overnight. And of course, that just piles on. One of the things I noticed a little while ago was the fact that we had in the area near Wrightsville Beach, I was looking at the 1 hour rainfall, and some areas picked up over 3 inches of rain in just 1 hour. And there have been digit amounts of rain over the Outer Banks from the initial approach of Tropical Storm Florence I'm sorry, Hurricane Florence, as it was heading toward the coast. I'm getting ahead of myself because at some point it will be downgraded to a tropical storm, but maybe not today. One of the things you'll notice on the loop, on the radar loop, aside from the very slow motion, is that it looks like there's a bit of a southerly component to it, as it just absolutely inches along. And I think we're going to spend the day watching the center of this kind of go back and forth between perhaps being partially or mostly on land to being partially or mostly on water. And that's going to depend on how much southerly component develops here as we go through the day. So you can expect to see a long duration stretch of hurricane force winds and hurricane force gusts. And of course, the heavy rains that are just going to go on and on and on. Notice, by the way, on the radar, in all those dark green boxes there, those are all flash flood warnings that have been up for hours and hours and hours. And by the way, that red box that shows up toward the end of the frame, as you go northeast toward the Outer Banks, that is a tornado warning. So you're getting these bands, these squalls that are rotating around, and with all the energy that's being spent out, you are seeing tornadoes popping up. Those red boxes come and go very, very quickly, and we're probably going to see more of that today as we watch Florence drifting very slowly to the west or west-southwest at maybe 5 miles an hour or less. Myrtle Beach now getting into the western edge of the core, and that is going to gradually sink further south. Nowhere close to Charleston. You can see how far south and west Charleston is. And I think at this point we're going to be wrestling with how far south does it get, because I think that's probably going to impact where this winds up later in the weekend and early next week with regards to the remnant rains, because some models, of course, further west, some further east, always resolving that particular issue. The European remains very bullish on the idea of bringing substantial rains up east of the Appalachians into Pennsylvania and eventually into southern New York and southern New England, and that would include the big cities, Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, and that's something we're going to pay attention to, particularly for Pennsylvania because of the rain-soaked nature of the last month or so. Many places still have standing water on the ground. Here's a look on the satellite. By the way, you can see this to the side of me. I'll try and bring it up full screen here, and it doesn't have. Obviously, you can't see, the eye is completely filled, but you've got that coiling circulation just moving. It's amazing to me that the way the meteorology set up this time, the way the atmosphere set up this time, completely favors a track that literally straddles the coastline going southwestward. This is a big problem, by the way, for the Outer Banks and for areas of Pamlico Sound. I have a friend of mine actually who has a property in New Bern, complete, and that's not sitting on the ocean, by the way. That is behind the back bay, and water that backs up westward into the open rivers there. He was complete. His rental completely washed, flooded out from the tidal surge, and it was substantial. I mean, the ceiling was gone, everything. I believe that area had 9 feet of standing water, so the entire inside of his house is just gone. So I've only seen that. I have that one example that I saw. I honestly am, outside of been looking at videos, the occasional video that's been popping up. And of course, I actually do sleep. I did sleep last night. I really haven't seen too much. I have my TV on the side, and I was just looking at, they had up shots of water coming in, but on the ocean side. I'd be really going to be curious to see how bad the flooding was on the bay side. Sanford, North Carolina, David R. Still haven't lost power, but it is windy. Good to hear. Of course, we have the usual array of power outages in situations like this, and there's likely to be even more. And we're going to have a long, long roll here. Anthony P., can you see 6 inches in northeastern PA? Look, I think that part of the I'm not going to say it's impossible, but honestly, I got to see how this is sets up. And the next 2 days, today and Saturday, will probably, it's probably laying the foundation for where the remnant low is going to go. It's really going to be a matter of does it go along and east of the Appalachians, which is what the European contends, or does it go along or just west of the Appalachians? Because if it goes west of the Appalachians, that's going to mean for heavier rains further north and west. That's not to say that there won't be rainfall for northeastern PA, but it might not be the substantial number that you're saying in the chat. You picked the number 6 inches. If it goes east of the Appalachians, it's a different ballgame. That then becomes a problem with rainfall amounts everywhere east of the mountains to the coastline. The good news is that at least if that happens, that is a relatively fast shot. It's not like what we're seeing in the Carolinas where everything is just sitting here. Okay, this is going to be a bit different because it'll be a fast shot. It'll be, come in later Monday night, probably be gone by Tuesday night, and then weather conditions improve after that. It's not going to be raining for days and days and days on end. Off to look at some of these weather maps here. We've got the radar loop. We'll look at a couple of various radar loops around this morning, and we're going to start with the radar out of Wilmington, North Carolina. And there you can see the center here. There are some breaks in the precip, by the way, as you go north and east of the center. It's not a good idea to focus on that. It's the nature of the storm now that you do have part of the circulation over land. I have to tell you, I'm rather impressed by the way Florence's pressure remains down in the 950s, where it has been pretty much for the last 24 to 36 hours. We haven't really seen the pressure come up very much, even though the wind field has been, the top winds have diminished, but as we were pointing out yesterday, the more important aspect of this was the fact that the wind field was expanding, the area of gales expanding, and that was going to be problematic as far as the storm surge is concerned. I'm sure we're going to see more and more in terms of what actually occurred with respect to impact and damage. I've got the surface map up so we can look at least at some of the winds, and I'm taking a look, at some of these numbers. Here's the problem for Pamlico and the Outer Banks here for Pamlico Sound. The winds, we're seeing gusts here into the 40s and 50s, and even a 63-mile-an-hour gust not too far to the east of Morehead City. The big problem is the fact that I'm going to shut the radar off, and I'll come back to the radar separately because I just want to focus on the winds here. So we're going to take the radar off. Go away. You can see these wind gusts. All the winds here in this area are still from the southeast and east, and that is really an issue due to the fact that the water that came in from the surge is not going out, and you have subsequent high tides that follow, and that is going to mean for more coastal flooding, and the water is just going to continue to just pile on, pile on, pile on. Down the coast, Augusta 63. We have a sustained here of 55 as we get to near Wilmington and New Hanover. Wilmington, a gust there of 68. Carolina Beach gusting to 70. I actually have been to Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, a beautiful place. Here is the Banks Channel at US Highway 74, Wrightsville Beach. The wind at the time of the observation, east northeast at 29. I'm sorry, east at 29, gusting to 34. So the center is right in this area here. It's a bit on the broad side. So Wrightsville Beach has an east wind. We've got a northeast wind at the rapid deploy gauge, which is the Cape Fear River at Highway 74, 133 at Wilmington. Northeast there at 38, gusting to 68, and the wind at Sunny Point is 27, gusting to 70. So the actual circulation right now, just looking at these wind obs sitting right over here. So the winds are probably relatively light in the areas around New Hanover and Carolina Beach at the moment, or maybe they were relatively light as the system moves along very, very slowly. The winds are going to pick up again. Notice the winds on the other side at the moment are all from the northwest as we move down coast, Southport, Oak Island, 43 mile per hour west-northwest wind. Further south, you get to Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, just gusted to 40 with sustained at 25. Winds still in and around Myrtle Beach itself, gusting to 51, but the sustained winds mainly again from the northwest. There's an odd observation here with an east-southeast wind. I don't know where that comes from, but the winds are all generally from the northwest here. So you see what's at play with respect to the overall track and where we're going with this. It's going to be a long, long day for that part of the Carolina coast, south of the whole Carolina coast, but in particular now from Wilmington southwestward toward Myrtle Beach. The other radars we can look at that will shift southward and go to the Charleston, South Carolina radar, which is kind of next in line here. Really not too much going on. You can see a couple of lead squally bands to the west of Myrtle Beach, but really nothing important to speak of. Here's the Wilmington radar back again. Looks like at least toward Myrtle Beach is starting to getting closer and closer to that core as it moves to the southwest. And on up to the Morehead City, North Carolina radar, where there's that tornado warning. This one's lasted for a while. Usually these things, the way they've been going is they've been just kind of popping up and then being taken down as the tornado comes and goes. This one has been up for, let's see, a solid hour here. So something major is going on. You look at the radar echoes, it's no big surprise really. You can see those dark oranges and the reds. Those bands are sweeping northwestward. The radar, one more radar stop, will go north to the Wakefield, Virginia radar. And there's a band of some squally rains that have moved into southeastern Virginia. You can see the northern fringe of Florence here, that tornado warning that's been posted. And by the way, the Storm Prediction Center has this whole area at risk for severe weather, so none of this is really a big surprise. And of course, the precip does cut off at some point, and there's no impact. There's a couple of light showers coming into parts of the southern Delmarva, but really, in terms of the the real stuff, let's call it. There's no real impact here, areas to the north, and nor was there ever going to be once it became clear that this was heading for North Carolina. Okay, so looking at some storm rain totals, and this is changing very rapidly, of course. These are rain totals that go back to yesterday, so they are cumulative. And the purple, 10 inches. You can see there have been 10-inch amounts or 10 inches of rain in the part near Jacksonville, North Carolina, in and around Morehead City. Cape Hatteras is in the 6-inch plus zone. The darker reds, 8 inches. We're getting now to the 6 and 8-inch rainfall amounts showing up near Wilmington. Also going inland, seeing some 8-inch plus rain amounts heading northwestward into North Carolina. And the 2.5 inches of rain actually extends pretty far north and west at this point. So we know that the rain is going to be a very, very serious issue that's developing in these areas, the expanding area of flash flood warnings, and that's just going to go on all day long and tonight and probably for tomorrow, because really, when you think about it, we're only talking a bunch of miles here and not many to go from Wilmington, relatively speaking, down to Myrtle Beach and then a turn westward somewhere in there. I'm really going to be fascinated to see how much of the coast we hug. Here are the rainfall amounts when you look at it from the perspective of the Wilmington, North Carolina radar. The darker reds, again, a solid 6 to 8 inches there in and around the Wilmington area. And then, of course, amounts lessen as you go north and west, but that is going to change. In fact, just looking at the hour total, because I noticed it. Look at this is just in the last hour, by the way. The dark red is the darkest red in here is 3 inches. That's 1 hour of rainfall that has fallen in and around the Wilmington area, actually just southwest of Wilmington. So I mean, that's a phenomenal rate of rain, and it's one thing to get it if you're getting one of those passing thunderstorms that you might deal with in the summertime, and once it spends itself out, it's gone. But when you're talking 3 inches of rain an hour and the rain continuing for hours and hours, without with no end in sight, not a good thing. Excuse me. I don't do I don't wake up well in the morning, as I think it's becoming painfully clear to you if you've been watching every day. The satellite loop this morning, the visible satellite loop just coming into play. Let me make sure that we have the last frame. You can actually see these the higher cloud tops concentrated around the center. It looks like it's barely moved here on the loop. This is a 3-hour loop. I'm gonna see if I can. Is there a way? No, I was just trying to see if I can make this a little bit longer, but we've got a 3-hour loop here, and the core of the circulation just sitting there. If it's moving west southwestward, by the way, you can see where it's going to come back, where the center could possibly come back out over the water. The bottom line is that at least half of the circulation of this hurricane is going to remain over the water all day today and tonight, which means the weakening will be very, very slow. And you won't see the weakening accelerate until you get a turn to the west and it goes further inland. If it keeps inching further west and avoids, starts to pull that circulation further and further inland, then yeah, you might see the weakening of the storm a bit faster. But please bear in mind that when we say weakening, with respect to the wind field, that is the case. The rain issue is going to remain, and as long as part of the circulation remains over that very warm water off the southeast coast of the U.S., you are going to get tons and tons of rain coming in inland. The tracks now, we're going to go and focus on the forecast aspect of this. And, the hurricane models, they're starting to widen the picture out at this point because as we go into the longer term, you can see where the track is ultimately going to wind up. The southernmost tracks are the most problematic. The southern and easternmost tracks of some of these models are the most problematic for Western Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, southeastern New York, and southern New England. And again, this is going to be mostly rain. There's not going to be much of a wind issue at all unless there's some odd squall or thunderstorm that is in the mix. If there's some sort of intact circulation that moves along, sometimes you can get some wind gusts out of that. But the main emphasis really is going to be on the rainfall once it completely makes the move inland into South Carolina. Notice, by the way, none of the tracks, you have some of the tracks that come in closer to Charleston, but none of them now go that far south. The Europeans on the southern edge of this envelope. And we, of course, point out you don't use these maps when you see them, or any of the forecast maps that we show you with regards to trying to make decisions. You want to use maps from the National Hurricane Center and your local National Weather Service office, nhc.noaa.gov or weather.gov. I hate to repeat that, but it was amazing. I did see a comment posted the other day, and basically someone was reacting with regards to what some of the models were doing, and I had to remind them that what, that's just guidance. This is not a forecast. This is, we're showing you what models are doing so that you can gain an understanding of how this is all. How we come about all this. And just please remember, models are not, they're not gospel, okay? They are used to guide the forecaster and what the atmosphere is going to do. They're not to be looked at or used and say, well, the model says it's going to be here. Well, it has to be here. No, not at all. No, absolutely not. Which one of these models are you going to pick to make a decision? There's about 15 of them, and they all have it at different spots. And while we can speak in a broad sense about where it's going, the impact for individual areas with a smaller scale situation could be the difference between a half an inch of rain to 2 inches of rain to 6 inches of rain. So you're not going to be able to decipher that from that particular map. And that's why you don't use it to make decisions. And here's the GFS, by the way, the ensembles, which give an idea that maybe the European might not be that far off with its assessment, because a lot of the members are tightly clustered there across the state of Pennsylvania and moving into southern New York. So that we're not going to really get a good handle on this, obviously, until we until we get to a point where the circulation is inland and we see where it is in South Carolina. Is it on the southern end of the guidance envelope, or is it on the northern end? That could make a huge difference. How far north do we think it's going to get, and so on and so on. I'm going to come at this point, before we go to the weather models, I'm going to come back to you guys on the board. By the way, I'm directing and producing, and I'm the talent in these live streams. So sometimes I do make mistakes, and I appreciate everyone's patience with me. Okay, I just noticed that the map was a little bit off. It's hard for me to have to go back and forth and checking to see what's on the screen and what's off, and sometimes I do forget. So I appreciate your patience. Also, let me very quickly, I just want to mention there'll be a link. I'll put it up on the chat, and let me just show you really fast. I have a platform on Patreon. And there's a link on the descriptor to this live stream, and later on, if you're watching this on a replay, on the descriptor to this video, and there'll also be something that will come across the screen as well that you can link to this if you'd like. It's a great way to support my channel. Not only do you get the live stream videos, and you will definitely get notifications, by the way, of when I do the live streams, because you can actually watch the live stream directly from the Patreon platform. You don't necessarily have to go to the YouTube platform, so that gives you an advantage, and there's an app that you can use as well. But you'll get videos. I have 3 websites, and you will get access to all those website posts where we get into the meteorology and the maps in a bit more detail. and those posts are free of any advertising. They load up quickly, and I also will be having an app coming out shortly. I got word on it this morning that it is doing quite well, and it will go to Patreon members first. So hopefully we'll get that wrapped up in the next week or two and have it out there. Now I got to just wait for Apple and Google to sign off on it, and it'll be a great thing. So it's just $2 a month. And that's all I'm asking for. There are a couple of different tiers. And by the way, you get to message me and I will respond to you in a timely manner. So thank you very much for those of you who consider or have joined the Patreon platform. All right, so off to the boards we go. Got a nice crowd this morning. Good morning, everybody that is here. Thanks very much for being here. George 99 Wilbs, NSFW says just north of Wilmington, a foot of rain already and a 40-inch rainfall amount is possible. Would not shock me, 99 Wolves. Yeah, there could very well be a foot, a foot of up to 40 inches of rain. Certainly every bit of doubling that foot. By the way, I know Okie AG, you would really love for this to just keep going straight west or west-northwest. Although I probably think that by the time you get, it would get to Arkansas and Oklahoma and in that part where you've got a drought. And you're right, you pointed out earlier, it does seem an awful shame to see all this rain falling in this particular area where you have been so bone dry. It's got to be it's got to be very, very frustrating. By the way, some of the European rainfall amounts from the guidance that I saw that I can see, but unfortunately I can't really share it with you because the European is not government. You got to pay for it, and I'm seeing the model amounts in much of the southern third of North Carolina, and it goes fairly far inland, of 15 to 25 inches. And it's usually my experience that with these tropical systems, the models can underdo this by 50%, or even you could wind up with double these amounts. And also in South Carolina, not back to west of Myrtle Beach, and then draw a line northwest from there. So basically, in that southeastern corner, there's, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Looks like like 12 or 13 of the easternmost counties in South Carolina, also in that band of 15 to 25 inches of rain. So we are talking here about a substantial, serious rainfall event. No question about it. So the flooding here is going to be absolutely insane. And the sky is definitely changing now. The wind has started to hit. Says dangerous in friend. I'd be curious. Where are you? I'd be curious where you are in North Carolina. And any information that anyone can give us, it's great. Anthony P, 30 inches of rain already in Atlantic Beach. Was that something that you heard reported? Just if you could give me the source, I really would appreciate it. Just so I know. David Schwartz, for our area, are we going to see the sun anytime soon? Actually, I saw a little bit of sun when I woke up this morning. It's been a bit on the self-destructive side because the clouds have come in. But over the weekend, I think we're going to have our area here where I am from New Jersey, southeastern New York, Long Island, Connecticut, back into eastern Pennsylvania, maybe a little tougher to happen inland, might take a little bit longer. But our weekend here, I think, is going to be pretty good for the most part, with the skies becoming partly sunny on Saturday and becoming mostly sunny on Sunday. And that's that big upper high that's building. And we're going to look at the guidance going forward in just a bit. I just want to run through all of some of these the comments here. Let's see. All right, up we go. Fallen Angel says, my sister Carrie says she's had no rain yet the map showed 1 to 2 inches so far carry is west of Raleigh. Um, I don't know. It's you kind of hard. It was kind of hard on that on the rainfall map from the radar. It's a little bit hard to read the specific cities, but it's entirely possible if she's that far inland. It doesn't look like, to me, it was on the radar that it looked like there was that much rain actually on the radar itself, the radar composite itself, as far north and west as Raleigh, but it should get there in short order. I can actually check that for you. So let me see. We'll check to see what exactly it is doing right now in that part of North Carolina. The hurricane warnings, by the way, extend very far inland in North Carolina. So I'm pulling up Raleigh-Durham at the moment, where it's just overcast and breezy there, by the way. 78. The wind there is, it's pretty gusty that far inland when you think about it. It's northeast 24, gusting to 38. Raleigh's not near the coast. It's a several hour drive, about a 2.5 hour drive, as I remember, from Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. I was there many years ago at Wrightsville Beach. I loved it. But it's pretty far inland. To see, wind gusts almost to gale force there is fairly impressive. But yeah, there's not a whole lot going on from the standpoint of the radar. No, if she's north of and west of Raleigh-Durham, there's nothing on the radar there. The rain is all south. The rain is almost to Raleigh coming in from the southeast. But you got to be a little careful when you use these Dopplers as you move away from the center on that particular radar shot. I'm looking at the rainfall amounts here, and there's been just trace amounts north and west and north and east of Raleigh-Durham. Although you start to get into some 1-inch amounts as you move further to the east near Rocky Mount. But there's some variability. The massive rains are, of course, the big rains as you go south and east from there toward the coastline. Mr. Gucci, let's see. Well, it's just water. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Can it go back out over the ocean? Of course, William Huber. It might do that. It might even do it halfway. Maybe half the center goes offshore and half of it stays onshore. Let's see. Christine Davis, okay, stay safe. My area is already so saturated from the rain we have had earlier in the week and the previous weeks. I can only imagine how much rain have you gotten, where are you located? All right, so Sanford, North Carolina, David R., as I said earlier, still has not lost power. Charlotte, east of Charlotte, breezy. Yeah, the gusty winds have actually moved pretty far far inland. You said the southeast corner, JM, of South Carolina. Do you mean Hilton Head? Yeah, could very. This is gonna straddle the coast down to about at least I'm thinking to about Myrtle Beach before it moves inland. It's hard to say how far south it's going to get. Look, the rain is definitely going to get into you, whether it goes inland or not, to your north or to your south. It's probably more important if it goes to your south with respect to the wind. We're basically nowcasting at this point, obviously, just watching the track hour by hour. In fact, I can at this point, and I'm going to go back to the guidance here in just a second. I just want to see the Hurricane Center at nhc.noaa.gov is updating this hour by hour issuing update statements. So the eye of the hurricane, they are now carrying a southwest motion of 245 degrees. So if that continues, you can bet that the storm's center is probably going to emerge back out over the water for a little while. The Doppler radar and surface obs indicate that the center of Florence has been wobbling southwestward near the coast of southwestern North Carolina. The official position at this point is at 34 north, 78 west, which is 30 miles southwest of Wilmington, North Carolina, or 55 miles east of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Top winds are 85 miles an hour. So the top winds, you're going to see those top winds continuing to decrease as the wind field continues to spread out. So that's going to mean a larger area of gales, a larger area of storm force winds of 50 miles an hour or more, and of course gusts to hurricane force. And there was another gust. There have been a lot of gusts with this to 100 miles an hour or more, and that's been going on since last night. A wind gust to 99 miles an hour recently reported at a weather flow private observing site at Federal Point. I don't exactly know where that is. The pressure 958 millibars. The pressure inching up a millibar. It's essentially unchanged at 29.29 inches. So let's come back now. We'll take a look at what our friendly neighborhood GFS has to tell us. And there we go. So I'm going to bring up the window. You know what I'd like to do at this point before, if you looked real fast on there, anyway, that was something that you shouldn't have seen. So with respect to a weather map, but let me take a look. Let's bring up. I want to see if we can bring up. Let's bring up that interactive storm. I'm just out of curiosity. The interactive inundation tool just pulled up the wrong thing. So there we go. Be curious to see what it's been doing. I didn't really look at it. Hopefully there's. All right, so I'll bring this up here. There we go. So the surge is going to continue, of course, and you can see what's happened with respect to in Pamlico Sound up near New Bern. This is all 9 feet in the red. That's all the areas in red outline. 9 feet of water above ground, and in the brown, 6 feet above water. See, all the water gets just pushed back up into the rivers and the back bays and everything else, and it's got no way to come out. And now, of course, you're going to add all this rainwater that's coming down with the heavy rain as you go upriver as the rainfall, as the rivers narrow. The flooding is going to be, I think, really, really excessive. Going down the coast near Jacksonville, 3 to 6 feet, pretty common in some of the back bays. Again, the same issue with regards to the water not being able to drain out. You can see here also, I can't really read what is that. The Carteret, I guess that's the Carteret River with flooding of 3 to 6 feet there. Down in the Wilmington area, see here, one of the advantages in this particular area was the fact that you had the northwest wind as the storm approached from the angle that it was approaching at, and that really kind of blows the water out. So when the storm passes, the wind then turns around to the south. So that actually has minimized the surge. It hasn't completely eliminated it for the flooding in these inland waterways, but it has helped considerably because of the fact that this has come in from the east. Where this area would be impacted strongly is if it came in the other direction, where a storm was coming up from the south or the south-southwest, because then that would have southerly winds ahead of it or southeasterly winds ahead of it, and you would wind up flooding things out. So if you look at the storm inundation tool, for those of you who are watching and you're south and west of the center, you might want to take a look at this to just check for your general area if you're near the coast, or even if you're just inland of the coast. If you're near if you're in a waterway, a river that drains down into the ocean, you really want to check that out, because the tidal flooding, of course, could back up all the way upstream. And on top of that, you've got the rain issues that you're going to have to deal with. So a very, very important tool, and you can find that on nhc.noaa.gov. Okay, so let's take a look at what the models are telling us. We know what the drill has been all along with this as far as going inland. These maps, by the way, courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com, and are not to be used for decision making. There's your GFS, kind of just straddles it right along the coast or just inland by tomorrow morning. It's still on the coast, not too far from Charleston. By the way, notice how the GFS is, even though the models weren't that far apart, there was a difference between the GFS and the European, and the GFS keeps coming toward the European solution, this track a bit further to the south. and then it goes inland. Looks like it almost makes it to Charleston in terms of the center. It goes north of Charleston, and then on up into western South Carolina, western North Carolina, eastern Kentucky with the remnant low. Kind of still wants to take it into Ohio. See, this track would not be overly problematic with the rain for areas, for the area that I forecast for. So in the Northeast, eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. In terms of the accumulated rainfall amounts, it's not that substantial for my area on this and across Pennsylvania. You're talking about rainfall amounts generally under 2 inches, and in some places even under an inch. But again, follow the white. You see how the white shading here? This basically tells you what the um, GFS thinks with respect to the track of the surface low, which is up through Ohio, west of the Appalachians, and then it turns it northeast across upstate New York. And of course, you see the concentration of the 20-inch amounts plus, which easily could be double that, as the models have a tendency when it comes to tropical systems to really underdo what the rainfall is going to be. But this all, of course, is how the model reacts to the upper flow. What's going on, we have this upper high, of course, that has been driving all of this, that builds across the Great Lakes in New England over the weekend. That's why my neck of the woods is going to do quite well this weekend with respect to sunshine, at least relative to what we've seen over the last week. And then the upper feature with Florence moves pretty far left of the Appalachians. And then early next week, as the northern jet starts to come down, a little bit of a shortwave trough gets involved and kicks it away. It doesn't really look all that impressive when you look at the flow. It's not like you've got this deep trough, deep shortwave that's driving all this. But when we look at the European from last night, you notice the trough, this is by Tuesday night, much more of a definable feature here that it has. And it also, notice the upper feature on the European is much further east than the GFS. Instead of having it back almost to Louisville, this one has it, the European has it in central West Virginia. So this would say that the surface low, which would probably track very close to the upper low, comes along and just east of the Appalachian Mountains, and then from here winds up somewhere in southeastern New York by Tuesday evening. This outcome, this is a big, this would be a big rainfall event for Western Virginia, West Virginia, Eastern Pennsylvania, and into New York State. Western Virginia and West Virginia would get into this probably on a little bit later on Saturday, but especially Saturday night, Sunday into Sunday night, and Monday before the low pulls away. And then for my neck of the woods, it would probably be the bulk of it Monday night and during the day Tuesday. And then, of course, after that, as the system moves offshore, drier air comes in. We still have a bit of a ridge here in the eastern part of the United States along the southeast coast of the U.S., but gradually the European does bring a more substantial trough through later next week, and that could bring a nice shot of cool air just in time for the arrival of autumn. So, I think the bottom line at this point, when we look at all these models in tandem, we are basically now left to with the short range. We really know where this, how this is going to play out pretty much. It's the specifics of the fine tuning, which we can only do by watching the satellites and radars. And the guidance is not particularly useful here, if only because of the fact that it's on top of us. So we'll look at it what it does, but it's really going to be the radars and the satellites that are going to tell the tale here going forward. And here's the I'll update these here. Let me just get rid of that, and we'll freshen up the satellite loop, and we'll freshen up the radar loop. I'll come back to you guys now on the board again to get some of the late comments. Are we finally going to get a break from the tropical activity next week? Asked Scott Briller. Well, as long as the remnants of Isaac don't fire up as they move westward, I would say, yeah, we probably will see a bit of a break. Helene, by the way, is probably destined in some form to head toward Ireland and the UK and England and Scotland, and that seems to be a regular thing now in the last couple of years to get these tropical storms to move up into the North Atlantic. But I haven't. I just kind of gave it a cursory glance, but it does have an identifiable feature that gets wrapped up inside a deepening low in the North Atlantic that it does lift up northward. If I can get some time to take a look at it a bit deeper, I'll maybe do something with it tonight on tonight's live stream, which we'll do at 7 o'clock. I just haven't really had a chance. I haven't seen that much, Israel, with regards to video from the damage so far. I've just been kind of, turning my head sideways every once in a while to take a look at what might be on the screen. But I haven't really given it a good look, and I haven't looked at any live cams this morning either. Winds are down to 85 miles an hour. I did see at 99 Wolves. Again, the wind field continues to spread out with gales almost, gales being reported as far inland, 150, 175 miles inland of the coast, and the weakening wind. One of the things, by the way, with respect to the wind, to just bear in mind, it's one thing, when you have a tight hurricane with 120 mile an hour sustained wind or whatever it is, it is, it's in a very, very small area, maybe 10 miles or 15 miles from the center. So if you are in the bullseye, you're going to get hammered by that. And the strong winds decrease rather quickly relative to the distance as you move out. But in a lot of ways, it's it's a different experience when you have a large area of, say, 50 to 70 mile an hour winds with gusts approaching 100 miles an hour, and it goes on for hours and hours and hours on end. It's a different sort of experience. So I know the number on the wind gets a lot of weather geeks going. On a practical standpoint, it's if the wind were decreasing because the system were weakening, it's one thing. If the wind is decreasing because the wind field continues to spread out, it's another. And that is, that's still telling us that we are dealing with a very, a strong system that's basically changing its character a little bit, and it's not in the process of starting to fall apart. And of course, as we've said, none of that has changes anything with regards to the extreme rainfall that we're going to continue to see. Good morning to you, JM. Would it be great now that September is half over to get to some normal September weather? Joyce Mack, I'm with you. Believe me, I'm with you. ABC News reported that earlier about the rainfall amounts. What was it, 30 inches for Atlantic Beach? Okay, that's fine. Excellent. Thank you for letting me know. So they probably got it from I'm assuming they got it from a reliable source. And certainly the Doppler radar does verify that there was some excessive rainfall amounts in that in that particular area. And let's see. Tim Litfield, aka Tim Winfield, Isaac's projected path took it into southwest Georgia is the reason I'm asking. That is where I live, and I'm wondering. You're talking about Florence here, not Isaac. I mean, Isaac's not. Isaac's not an issue at all right now. There were some models. The European took it very close to that area in a couple of runs, but I don't think I don't think it's going to get that far south and west. I think it's a matter of maybe it gets to about Charleston, South Carolina, on the absolute most westward path. I don't really see it getting that far south and west. I really, really wouldn't worry too much about it. If you're in southwest Georgia, no, that's definitely not an issue for you. And certainly nothing that I see indicates that that's even a remote possibility. So Joe Whitell, if you're joining late, I think we will see some remnant rains here late Monday and into Tuesday. from Florence, but whether they are just rainfall amounts that are generally on the order of an inch or so, or if they are going to be more on the order of several inches or higher, that will depend on the track. Does it go? Does the remnant low go west of the Appalachians, or does it go east of the Appalachians? Because if it goes east of the Appalachians, then we are going to see a much bigger and more substantial rain event. Will it help at all if the eye comes in during low tide today? Well, it's already in. It already made one landfall. I don't know where they worked from the standpoint of high tide. The problem is, Joyce, that in areas to the east, because of how it came in, passing south of the Outer Banks and coming in from the east, all the areas that were north of the center have been experiencing continuous winds from off the water. So every tide cycle going from high to low tide, hardly any water gets an opportunity to move out back into the ocean. And this is compounding the problem with respect to the tidal surge. And the winds in those areas will continue to be from the southeast or south through today and through tomorrow. They're not going to get a wind shift until this thing gets far enough north into South Carolina or into the Appalachians before we can get the wind to go to a more of a west or a northwest direction in order to push the water out. So it's basically one time, one after another after another. Isaac is basically down, by the way, to a tropical depression in the Caribbean, and these remnant circulation centers with that getting sheared apart. It flares up every once in a while. It's always possible that that could wind up regenerating when it gets further west into the Caribbean. Although the models right now don't really show too much regarding Isaac. I'm not really paying any important attention to it because at this stage of the game it's still all Florence. No worries about it. No apologies warranted. Tim Whitfield, also known as Tim Whitfield. No problem at all. And Joyce Beck, you have to get through the backside of the storm too. This is what made this so problematic, folks, is the fact that how this was coming in, the angle coming in from the east and then moving southwestward. It's something. It's something that that you just don't see very often. Certainly in my experience with dealing with tropical storms and hurricanes, you go back and look at past tracks back to 1950 and beyond, you do see some weird tracks with storms that impact the North Carolina coast. But this is the first time that I'm seeing something like this. It probably, my memory's kind of racked a little bit. This probably did happen at some point in the last 20 or 30 years, and I just don't quite remember. After a while, 10 average of 10 to 12 storms a year over a course of 40 years is 400 storms. It's very hard to remember every single one of them. What about Norfolk, Virginia? As I said earlier, Kevin Blevins and showed on the radar. Thanks for being here, by the way. There's some minimal activity going on the northern fringe. If you didn't know there was a tropical storm nearby, you may not notice the difference. The wind may be a bit gusty, but there's nothing there that's going on that looks to be substantial. Obviously, it's all down further to the south. And by the way, the further southwest it gets, the weather actually diminishes up in that area in southeast Virginia, where I believe there's still a tropical storm watch, but I imagine that that's just there for precautionary reasons and will probably come down. Wind RS reporting wind picking up in Myrtle Beach, North Carolina, as the storm continues its slow southwestward drift. So those of you watching in South Carolina in the eastern counties, look for your weather conditions to start deteriorating in short order. All right. I think it's time at this point to say goodbye. Just one more shameless self-promotion. Those of you who are into weather, if you're weather geeky, this is I continue to develop my platform on Patreon. It is a great way to support what I do. I'm just asking a couple of bucks a month. You'll get website posts from all three of my websites, video, posts exclusive to Patreon members only, including some videos from time to time. And you can message me at any time if you have any questions, and I will respond to you very timely. My aim is basically to start moving away from the Facebook platform, because Facebook has just become an absolutely difficult place to do things. They are, I think, I'm just guessing, because of all the problems that they've had. Right now, all they really care about is getting people to pay to have their videos boosted, and I'm not going to do that. I'm really disappointed by the fact that I have a fairly large Facebook audience, and last year during the hurricanes, I was getting tremendous reach from what I was doing, and that reach this year for Florence is down by 75%. And I've talked to a number of people who have setups on Facebook like mine, and they've said the same thing. They're getting, I do, I've been doing the YouTube videos here where I'm getting between 500 and 600 people on in a given live stream, and that's on a subscriber base of under 7,000. When I'm on Facebook, where I have close to 24,000 likes, I can't even get 100 people. And last year I was getting up to 1,000. So Facebook is deliberately restricting access to my audience, and this actually began in earnest back in the late spring. And I think they're just making a concerted effort to get people to pay to boost posts, and I'm just not going to do that. And their customer support, if you want to call it that, has been hideous. The Patreon platform is definitely a no-troll platform. Flat earthers, geoengineers, we threw a bunch of them out yesterday, and I had fun doing it. Well, you know what? If you want to pay the money to get on there for the $2 a month that I'm asking for, but I doubt it. Okay, so please consider it. This is a great, easy way to support my channel. I know some of you have hit super chat along the way, and thank you very much. I just put a link back up to Patreon on the chat board. And also, one other way you can do it, and this is kind of an easy way. If you shop on Amazon, there's an Amazon link on the descriptor to this live stream and on the descriptor to this video. And if you shop on Amazon, you can just go ahead and use that link, and Amazon will throw me back some coin out of their pocket, and it's enough for me to get a cup of coffee and a cigar every once in a while. And I'm very, very happy. Okay, OKAG, they're selling you short, showing you low numbers, even when many are actually watching. Well, maybe that's the case. I wouldn't, if I knew for a fact that people were seeing what I'm doing, even though they may be putting up different kind of numbers, I wouldn't feel so bad. But they also kind of did some insidious things to me, and they sort of did it at the same time. Those of you who know that, if you've been here long enough, I really don't get very political. If you're on my Facebook page, if you're on my personal page, I really don't get involved in political conversations. I'm a weather guy. I have my own opinions about things, but I'm not at all what you would consider an obsessed, active political person like a lot of people on Facebook are. But right at the time, and I'll share this with you, folks, right at the time that, if you think back at the end of July, the whole thing with Alex Jones, and and a bunch of other website Facebook pages that Facebook took down. Well, just by coincidence, and I don't know why, I use some of Facebook's tools in order to earn a little money. And there's no sin to earn money on your work. Everybody does it. But I was using some of their tools to earn some money. Well, on that weekend, they completely, and this, by the way, allows me to link up with businesses and sponsors and so on. Well, on that weekend, right at the same time, I wasn't taken off, but they completely demonetized me. In other words, they took away my ability to get sponsors for my weather posts, et cetera, to there's a tool that Facebook has that where you can when you publish something on your website, it converts it to a mobile-friendly page for Facebook users on the Facebook app, and they put ads on it, and you make some money that way. Well, they completely demonetized me, gave me no reason for it. I repeatedly contacted their support. They basically said I violated their policies. Here's our 300-page policy manual. You figure it out. And I gradually, and then I accused them of doing it for political reasons. Once I accused them of doing it for political reasons, I got all my tools back except for one, and that's the publishing tool for the converting the websites to a mobile-friendly page. They have yet to do that, and it is now coming up past 6 weeks, almost 7 weeks since this happened. It was around August 3rd or 4th, and they've done absolutely nothing. They are about they really are about collecting data. They really don't care. Why should they? Because, well, they already have you. Um, it's very sad. It's really very, very sad. So anyway, the bottom line is this is one of the reasons why I set up the Patreon platform to begin with, because I wanted folks to be able to go someplace. Those that are serious about weather, it's a good place to be. I think I've heard very good feedback so far from those that have joined up. So if you're interested, please take a look at it. It would be great. Did I lose monetization on YouTube? No, I did not. I did not at all. Famous last words. Keep your fingers crossed. You may know the story. Some of you may not know the story. When back last year, when I had my cat and dog before they died, my cat, who was just an amazing cat, he loved when I did live videos, and some of you may remember he would walk across the screen, but he used to go behind me in my kitchen, which you can see there. You can see one of the side cabinets. I don't have the angle correct, but the back cabinets, he would go in there and open up the cabinet where I would have stuff, and he would pull it out and it would come crashing on the ground. And it's basically vitamins and things. And when I mentioned that and used the medical word for what's in there, the video that I did that on, it would get demonetized, and I would have to appeal it. And one thing YouTube is very quick about is the appeal process. So it happened a couple of times. So they knew that when they saw it's the bots that pick it up. And it's not a person, it's the bot. So I would have to write and just say, look, it's my cat. He's gone into the cabinet. It's not, I'm not violating, any kind of policy. And they would respond within 20 minutes. Okay. This is, as I said, almost going on 7 weeks. And I had a situation on Facebook once back about a couple of years ago where I posted a weather map of the European, and it was one of those colored jet stream maps. And some of you may have seen that some of these colored maps, sometimes when you look at them close enough and you use your little creative, perhaps slightly dirty minds, and you see other things. The map and the headline read European model and weather and Canadian model go at it. Those were weather models. Well, a bot caught it, looked at it, read that phrase, and thought it was pornography, and I had my account suspended for posting pornography. And I had to write back, tell them, dear Facebook, you're stupid. It's not pornography. It's a weather map. It's a map of the jet stream. The models I'm referring to are not the models you're thinking of, but they are actually weather forecast models. And I got it back within 20 minutes. But that was at a time when Facebook was not really having the issues that they're having now. And they've become a very insular type of company. And I've actually, which is something I don't do very often, I have actually contacted my congressman about it. It is really concerning what they're doing. So I really would rather have all my weather people and those that are interested on the on a platform where I don't have to worry about that, and I don't have to worry about trolls, and I don't have to worry about being attacked, and and not that that happens very very often. And frankly, I don't have I have a fairly thick skin, so I really don't care. So there's that link again for Patreon for those of you who are interested. And again, thank you very much for sitting here and listening to my seemingly endless rant. Okay, schedule for the rest of the day. Patreon users, look for website posts to go up from time to time. We just finished this live stream. The next live stream that we're doing will be here on YouTube at 7 o'clock Eastern time, unless something cataclysmic happens that requires me to go on sooner. But we'll do the 7 o'clock live stream as we've been doing. I think that's worked out pretty well. Then we'll have the Joe and Joe weather show tonight at 9:15 on Facebook. And maybe I will move it over to YouTube if this nonsense keeps up. So again, 9:15 on Facebook at my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and I will put it up on Patreon. I didn't put up last night's show. The problem is it's so dated. I was so tired when I got home last night. I went right to bed, and I didn't get a chance to upload it. So I may just not do it this time around since it's already a dated issue, and there's no reason to just watch it because it's Joe and I. Anyway, that's at 9:15 tonight. A little hint about weekend coverage. There will be coverage over the weekend, but I have to tell you, I'm going to need to take a bit of a break. So I don't know if I'm going to be doing double live stream Saturday and Sunday, but that will depend on what happens with Florence as it moves inland. All right, folks, thanks very much for being here and for being patient and listening to me going on and on. I really, really enjoy what I do, obviously, and it's great that you guys are here on a regular basis. I've drawn really nice crowds here on these live streams. I'm thrilled about it. My audience continues to grow, which is where I want to take this eventually, and it'll be great to have all of you along for the ride. Have a great day, everybody. Please be safe if you're in the Carolinas as Hurricane Florence continues to ravage the coastline. And we'll see you tonight at 7 o'clock.